Jay, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today. I've followed you for a long time, both with banks and in the podcast world, so it's great to be able to finally connect. And
I am
chat
sorry
with you.
you've wasted so much time, so much of your precious time focused on a knucklehead like me.
Well, it's great to finally have you on the podcast. There's some products we're going to talk about. Also, I look forward to talking about banks and the brand in general. But for those that don't know you, tell us a bit about what you do at banks and a little bit of your background in automotive.
Sure. Today, marketing director at Banks Power, oversee all things marketing from video content to ad placement, help out with new product development. I've got, my ears to my eyes on social media all the time. So I'm always, I'm aware of what's going on in the marketplace, whether it's good or bad, and bring that to the engineers here. And they say, that's a great idea and we can make it, or that's not such a good idea. And I have the pleasure of working with Gale Banks, a living legend, every single day, 7 days a week. I mean, he's here 7 days a week, and I'm here 6. So, but I've learned an incredible amount from Gale, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this podcast. My backstory, I've always been into cars and trucks. The first thing, I guess I should say who I was before this. I hosted the Truck Show podcast, so I'm a truck guy through and through. Prior to hosting the Truck Show podcast, I worked at a radio station in Los Angeles called KROQ, the world famous K-Rock, an alternative rock station, and I produced the Kevin and Bean Morning Show. Prior to that, I ran a car stereo installation company out of my parents' garage. So it's been cars and trucks my whole life, or 12 volt, audio systems, and I still do that today. I'm ripping apart a Mini Cooper of all things and putting a full audio control sound system in it. But that's for some European podcast. That's not for today. But so we're here. I've been at Banks for just shy of 8 years, and it's been incredible, truly incredible. I've learned. I was at radio, and I had a cockamamie idea to build a show truck. Every town has their big radio station, whether it's country, it's rock, whatever, hip hop. And they all have the same Chevy van. And it's got the call letters. And they take that Chevy van to the opening of the 7-Eleven or to the baseball game, and they hand out free t-shirts and stickers and whatever. They all have that same van. I thought that's so lame. We have the same Chevy van, right? The Express 2500 or whatever. Now some of them have Sprinters, but I wanted something different, and I was a truck guy, and I thought, all right, what if we built a show truck for the radio station? And it should be something massive that we can take to Supercross and Monster Jam and not look foolish. So I went out and bought my own 2007 and a half Duramax dually, so an LMM. I went to the radio station management and I said, here's what I want to build. And they said, well, we can't afford that. And I said, no, I'll get it all sponsored. You just have to let me run the call letters on the side of the truck. And surprisingly enough, the program director said, yes, he trusted me to do this. And he knew I was a car guy and I represented the brand well. So I went to the attorney at CBS Radio and convinced them to do it. And she said the same thing, we'll trust you, but you need to carry $4 million of liability insurance on your own. And I said, ooh, so ouch. Luckily, I was the voice of AIS, the auto insurance specialist. So I worked out a deal with them we worked out a deal where I was doing more of the commercials. They were paying me a little more and I could reinvest that into my insurance. And we were able to build this truck. Reason I tell you this long story is this is how I meet Gale Banks. I'm backstage at a comedy show, a big comedy show at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, big place. And, Big Leo, Brian Suits, who was hosting mornings on another station, was backstage, and he knew that I was into cars, and we were just making small talk, having a beer, and he goes, Lightning. Lightning was my nickname for many years. He says, Lightning, what are you working on these days? You're always toying with cars and trucks. I said, you're not going to care. You're just wasting your own breath. And he says, no, I'm interested. What are you working on? I go, okay, I'm building a big giant monster truck, a lifted dually, blah, blah. This is what is it diesel? I go, of course it's diesel. It's a big truck. And he says, you should meet my friend. And I go, you don't have any friends in automotive. People in radio are not into cars and trucks. They might drive a nice Mercedes, but that's because they're a salesperson. They have to pick up clients. And he says, no, you should meet one of my friends. And I go, all right, I'll take the bait. Who do you know? And he goes, Gail Banks. I said, you don't know Gail Banks. There's not a chance in a million years you know Gail Banks. And he goes, no, I do. I have dinner with him every Wednesday night at Musso and Frank's in Hollywood. And I go, none of this is jiving. It's all BS. But I called him on it. I said, all right, I'd love to join you. I found myself the next Wednesday night at Musso and Frank's, a legendary restaurant on Hollywood Boulevard. It was sitting with Gail Banks and Brian and some of their friends. And here's me pitching Gail on sponsoring my truck that I'm building with the radio station. I find out that Gail is a radio fan, that he's a talk show radio fan from back all the way to the 50s. So he says, I'm in, let's do it. I was blown away, and I got to know him over the next few years of building this SEMA, what turned into a SEMA truck. And I fell in love with what he was doing here. I fell in love with the engineering teams, with even the emissions guys. I was enamored by the tech, everything. And radio started to go downhill, as people know, right? It became Spotify and YouTube and all these things. And the writing was on the wall. And Gail made me an offer I could not refuse. So I came over here. I jumped out of radio, and people were skeptical. They said, why radio? How do you make the transition between radio and automotive performance parts? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And PR is PR. Being passionate about something is being passionate about something. Here I am today, blabbing at you guys, and I love it. I couldn't love it more. I'm just a pig in slop.
What was it? I'm really curious. What was it like that first week or first couple weeks at Banks, when all of a sudden there's that huge catalog, there's all that experience, there's 6.2, 6.5, 7.3 IDIs, there's Power Strokes, there's all these different platforms. Was it overwhelming at first jumping into...
Oh, yeah. I mean, here, I'm reaching over into my... in my case over here, I'm looking for a catalog. So there was hundreds of Post-it notes on my catalog right here, my Banks catalog. We no longer make catalogs. Some companies do, and I admire that, but we don't. I lived in this catalog. I didn't know what was what, and I still don't know a lot of those, the IDI versus... I'm just not... I didn't eat, sleep, and breathe diesel in my childhood. It was something that was newer to me, and I had to learn. But Gail threw me in. I thought that it would take me years to learn it. But on day one, I was in engineering meetings. I was in every meeting. I was in HR meetings, and I would often ask myself, should I be in this meeting? Am I qualified to know this? Yep, absolutely. Just get him in there. He'll learn it. He'll absorb it. And so I did. And he just fast-tracked it. I had no choice. If I was going to market this, and I didn't start off as marketing director, by the way. There was a marketing director who's still here, by the way. We kind of switched positions a few years ago. I was the brand manager. So as the brand manager, I was going to create video. I would be in charge of events and such. And I would look after the brand, and I would promote. That's what I was the promotions guy. As you can tell, I'm loud and obnoxious, and that's what I was going to be for the company. But as things evolved, I took on more of a marketing role, and the gentleman Billy, who's still here, he sits back here in another office, he was so focused on the website, and so much of our business now is done direct to consumer on BanksPower.com, that he needed to focus his attention on that. And so we flip-flopped, and I came into the marketing director position. I've been here for a few years doing this. And to answer your question, no, I'm still learning about some of the legacy product. And I'll never know all of it. And luckily, there's a great team here. Some have been here for 20, 30 years, and they know that product backwards and forwards. So I can really just pick up my phone, and within 15 seconds, I've got an answer for the customer or for the distributor, whoever it is.
That's so cool. My story with Banks is totally different. It was 2005, and I used to watch Stacy David and trucks on, I think it was Spike TV.
Now, did you watch Stacy or his hair?
Both.
Right.
And I love him to this day and still watch it. But I didn't have a diesel truck, but he had this episode, and it was the Banks Sidewinder all-terrain trucks. And
yeah.
I think I saw the Duramax first and then maybe the Cummins. But for those people that didn't see it, it was, they're bright red, either 6.0 Power Stroke, 5.9 Common Rail, or LLY Duramax, I believe it was. Could have been LBZ. But it had all these Banks products on it. And I remember sitting there as somebody who didn't own a diesel truck and seeing 450, 500 horsepower, 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, and how it was all put together. And that was the first time in the industry I connected with something, and it made me say, I want that one day. That's what I want to do. And to kind of fast forward it a little bit, being in the industry myself, like in a sales capacity for 4 years at that time, the industry for a long time, it really focused on deletes and getting rid of emission stuff. And I remember being, working in this industry, and Banks didn't. They set up the product line and focused on emissions, on performance, and doing things a certain way. And people in the industry, might make comments about it or say, oh, it's, it's not for you. It's for the older guys. And we're going to go pursue this quick, easy money. Yeah. Fast forward a little bit farther.
I've got a lot of opinions on that. I'm happy to share.
Yeah. I'd love to just kind of provide the overview of how I have seen it grow. Past that, I think once 7-figure EPA fines started to come in, once people started to go to federal prison for some of this stuff, the industry turned and it wanted to be where Banks Power had been the whole time. And that was the moment where I said, I need to really pay attention. This is something powerful. And, in my spare time, I would look back at some of Gale's old videos and things he had done, but I don't think diesel performance would exist without Gale Banks. So it's been interesting from the outside looking in and seeing it over a 15, 20-year period.
Yeah.
What it looks like.
So when Gale started in the early 80s, right, he was contacted. He had set land speed records, and Pontiac reached out to him, and they said, we have a new Pontiac Firebird coming out. We're going to skip a year, but the next year we want you to help us market the next year that's coming out. We want you to go set a land speed record at the Bonneville Salt Flats. The car is waiting for you. If you accept, the car is waiting for you at our desert proving ground in New Mexico. And we're also going to give you a pickup truck and a Suburban. And it's got our new naturally aspirated 6.2 liter diesels in them. So Gale and Bob Robe, engineer who recently retired after 40 some odd years here, drove down there, picked up the car, drove the trucks back, and were pulling out their hair because they were so ungodly slow. So he said, this is not going to work for us. And he and Bob, over the next couple weekends, took one of their turbo systems from a big block turbo or something at that time, and a gas application, and retrofitted it onto these pickup trucks. Boo, whoop. Flash forward a few years later, you could go into any GMC dealership in the country, there was like 2,500 of them at that time, and buy your brand new pickup truck with a 6.2 or Suburban with a Gale Banks Sidewinder turbo system.
You can buy the turbo system over the counter at any of 600 Gale Banks dealers. The price is $1,995. And if you're considering a new Suburban, the conversion is a factory option available at 2,500 GMC truck dealers.
Now that is 1 year prior to Dodge releasing the Cummins power plant with a turbo system. So there was a Banks turbocharged diesel pickup available through dealerships 1 year prior to the Cummins turbo diesel available in a pickup truck. That's significant. And that was the turning point for him. And he was doing all gas performance prior to that. He was the god of turbos back then. He was poked fun at. Guys called him like Gale Banks's hair dryer. You got those hair dryers from Gale Banks. They didn't understand turbos. Now, look, here we are today. Everything has a turbo on it. But back then, it was all about supercharging. And Gale did a lot of supercharging back then on his marine applications. He was all about forced induction. But the turbos were a game changer. He was in California. This had to happen in California, right? We had, even back then, CARB, California Air Resource Board. He didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Even back then, the fines were so steep. And people said, well, like, Gale, he's chosen this route. No. He would have had to have moved. Now, you've discussed this topic ad nauseum. All of your guests discussed it. You had Corey Willis on and the whole thing. And deletes have always been illegal, and they're still illegal. They just weren't policed in certain states, right? If you live in Texas, Utah, or wherever it is, Idaho, it's still illegal. Now, I'm not saying that I think it should be illegal. I'm just saying it is. And for that, and people just assumed that it was some kind of a choice that Gail made. That, oh, well, he could do it. He just doesn't want to. I'm like, no, he's in California and he employs a lot of people that have families. So it is what it is. And he wasn't going to risk it. Now, he has made plenty of race parts that required the deletion of emissions equipment to go racing. So it's a conscious decision to stay in business is what that is.
What it really did is it really pushed diesel performance in a very unique way, which I know we're going to get to here with some of the products, but in my mind, there was just a lull with diesel performance overall for a while there where you weren't seeing a lot of companies or a lot of innovation. It was like they just kind of gave up because I don't think they had necessarily the engineering power to be able to go through and say, we're going to give you lower EGTs, more horsepower, more torque, cooling, address this stuff. And so I think that's what's really unique about this conversation and chatting with you in the position that you're in is I think you're kind of at the convergence of so many different departments of engineering, what people are saying out there at truck shows or on social media, feedback that you're getting. And that's why I was really excited to have you on the podcast to be able to...
Yeah. Look, I was in a meeting, Patrick, earlier today, only a couple hours ago, where I'm in a meeting and we're looking at competitive inline tuners. We make, there's flash tuning, there's inline tuning, say what you will about both platforms, both methods of tuning your truck. But we were looking at some competitors that are in the market and looking at, we put them on the dyno, we instrument them, and we know everything that's happening about the competitive tuner. We know all the components on their board. We know their how they're doing what they're doing, and that's how we compete. And we're on an OEM level. When you come to Banks, if you guys are in the LA area, hit me up. I'll give you a tour. Like we give tours every day. And when people walk through, they go, "Oh, I get it. There's 5 engine dyno cells, the chassis dyno. There's engine building rooms. There's fabrication cells. There's the tube bending shop across the street, CNC. There's the whole thing. Like it is, there's engineers everywhere. And these are degreed engineers everywhere. It's not a guy in a corrugated steel building out in the Ozarks, coming up with some part. There's a lot of engineering, nothing against the Ozarks or corrugated steel buildings, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's just, yeah. This is an OE. We have built 29,000 Banks D866T engines for the Army's Joint Light Tactical Vehicle Program. That's the JLTV. It replaced the Humvee. All 29,000 JLTVs have Banks engines in them. We are General Motors' largest customer for Duramax engines outside of GM itself. And those engines are built for us with our parts injected into them on the line at DMAX in Moraine, Ohio, and now at the new Brookville plant. Then what the tools can't fit, those engines come to us for final assembly and test. And it's kind of like Mercedes AMG one man, one engine. They go all the way through the system, and every engine receives a dyno test, and then they get shipped off to, it was Oshkosh, now it's AM General. But anyway, my point is that it's an OE level engineering effort on every part we make. And when we're looking at a tuner earlier today, oh my God, it's just, I don't want to say what it was because this might be a little premature, but we were just wrapping our head around, it's a major company that we all know in the diesel space. And we thought, are they still doing it like this? Like it's 1994? Like what are they doing here? Why are they? And then also people are still buying it. So it's both, it's not that it's poorly engineered. It's maybe lazy engineering. And Gail just doesn't do that. He just doesn't, every part we make is like the last one we're ever going to make. We're going to go out big and we're going to win. And so consequently we're late a lot. People know that, right? We're late. and we're typically a little more expensive, not a lot more. There's a fallacy that we're tremendously more expensive. That's not the case. We're not. We're generally 10 to 20% more than the competitor. But it's no difference than a Citizen watch or a Rolex, a high-end Citizen or an entry-level Rolex or something, where it costs more, but to get to that next level, you got to pay for it, and it's up to the consumer to decide if it's worth it. Do they want to buy something that's, anyway, that's a whole nother topic. I'm sorry, I'm changing topics left and right, but I think you talk about me being at the convergence of all these things. Yes. Yeah. I'm at, it's a wonderful seat right here in this office. I get to look over. I'm on the second story, and out to my right, there's a window, and I'm looking at the shop floor, and I'm looking at Lockjaw, by the way. Lockjaw is our 1966 Chevy C20 on airbags with a supercharged Duramax in it. That's out my window, and it's a wonderful spot. I love it. I really have a lot of fun here.
The data in the videos that I've seen Gail do, or in the literature, the website information, it impacts so much. And for me, as I've been around it for a long time, I work in this industry. I'm going to continue to work in it, probably till I retire. And I know when I get facts or figures or like a flow chart or whatever it might be for the given product, I know it's gone through a process and it's tested. And that's so, I think, rare in diesel, or maybe even in automotive in general. I'm not sure, to be able to see those cold, hard numbers. And so I know when I buy this product, this is what it's rated to do. And I can compare it to OEM, compare it to another company's product that might be in that same segment. I love that as a consumer, because I know what I'm buying is worth it. It's gone through the process. It has a name on it that means something. And that's so rare in this space.
Thank you. That's Gale. That's his DNA. That's who he is. And the fastest way to commit suicide on the internet is to lie about your gains, because dynos used are only 15 grand. You can go buy a used dyno jet for 15 grand and be in business as a performance shop and make your own tunes or whatever you do. But for 15 grand, you could out Gale Banks if he's lied about his dyno numbers or his flow or whatever. He knows that. So the numbers are not embellished. The numbers are conservative. If it says adds 15 horsepower, adds 125 horsepower, you will get that unless you've done something wrong and you've tested it incorrectly. But every performance part is tested on the same day, at the same ambient temperature, under the same conditions, and it's all there. And it's not just for the consumer. It's for us. It's for Gale, because he loves data. He loves it. He's passionate about it, and he can find anything that is incongruent on a spreadsheet. He'll look at a row and instantly go, that one doesn't end in a 0. There's something wrong. Or why does everything, it's incredible, his mind. And the data at the end of the day speaks the truth. And like I said, if there are a lot of companies, I caught one today about a cold air intake system. And that's you could do a whole show on cold air intakes, because what a debate that is, right?
Oh, yeah.
This company, who we all know, if you're in diesel, you definitely know this company. They straight up made these numbers up. Straight up. There's not a chance in a million years that they're factual. And not only did they screw them up, they put the horsepower and the torque backwards. So it's just I think the staff from a lot of performance parts companies is thin. There's maybe one or two marketing people. They're in a hurry. They have lives. They're doing the best they can. They're not engineers. They're marketing people, and they interface with the engineers. I don't know their circumstances. I haven't worked at those companies, but they just got to do what they got to do. And they may not have what they think is the data to sell their products. So whether they make it up or they embellish or They put a dyno run from last September with one from this January on, and they just line them up, and they no. If you're going to dyno stuff, it should be on the same day or the next day at the same ambient temperature with the same conditions and yada, yada, yada. Like they're just throwing stuff together because they think, well, if we put up a dyno chart, anyone will believe it. It's a dyno chart. Everyone believes dyno charts. Okay, is there an SAE correction factor? There's no correction factor. Is it observed horsepower? Is it not? Like all these things. And Gail's like, this all matters. This all matters to a consumer that's educated. Now, if you're not educated, you're just going to buy whatever you're going to buy. You're going to believe any label on any bolt-on part. But the thing with the diesel market is that a lot of guys like you they know they've been around it enough, or just cut right to the core of a diesel owner. You spent minimum of $8,000 more for that engine. Why? You had a reason, and that reason is that it could be many reasons for many different people. But the bottom line, that was a cognizant decision you made about spending more. And for that, you now are invested in that engine and you want to know more about it. You take better care of it than somebody who just bought a gasser. Generally speaking, just very generally speaking, we find that diesel enthusiasts are more in tune with their vehicle and thus more educated. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Like the cost of a diesel truck, like spending $8,000 more at least for the engine, or spending 80, 90, 100,000 for the truck, and you're building a business, you're supporting your family with it, and just how easy it can be to destroy an engine or a transmission or something like that, and how expensive it is. The diesel enthusiast wants to know. They want to know when they buy something, put on their truck.
That's an interesting thing here. That's an interesting thing. So Gail Binks won countless endurance races, both on boats way back 70s, 80s. He's gone faster than everyone else on Bonneville Salt Flats. He wins defense engine contracts, not because he's building more horsepower into the engine. It's about longevity. The engines have to last. The parts he makes, the cold air intakes, the boost tubes, the monster exhaust, the monster ram, the tuning, everything, it has to help the engine's longevity. It has to benefit the engine. Yes, we would love it to make more power, but the one thing he will not sacrifice is the life of the engine. And he uses this phrase like, if you invite me over for dinner, on the way out the door, I'm not going to break your china. Right? So if you invite us into your vehicle, we're not going to violate it by hurting it. And I think what happens oftentimes is that you have the diesel enthusiast community, which love to see engines blow up. They love to see the dyno cell and the engine go flying into pieces and the crank hit the floor and all that stuff. Or they love to watch big horsepower, on YouTube videos and a frickin' something goes into the audience 50 feet away and some molten piece of part. And that gets conflated like into the regular bolt-on market. And the hardcore diesel guys start talking smack about companies like us as if they're like, if you don't make big horsepower parts, you're lame. What do you know about diesel if all you're doing is making bolt-on parts that maybe slow down the turbo shaft speed a little bit or increase manifold air density a little bit or whatever? Like they can't wrap their head around, if it doesn't make 200 or 300 extra horsepower, why would you bother? And I'm like, you need to separate the sport from a guy who has a wife, a dog, and 2 kids and a camper, and he needs to tow from California to Utah or Texas to Maine reliably. That's what he's looking for, and that's who we service. We also will make high horsepower parts occasionally for bragging rights or to set a record or whatever. We've done that. Gail has done that, but that's not the market we serve. But we get a lot of times people come at us through the lens of, you don't make big power, Like, well, okay, well, that's not what we're doing here. That's not who we're servicing. and they can't wrap their head around it. So they dismiss us, or they they rag on us on the groups. And I'm on all the Facebook groups, and I'm happy to say hi to you. You'll see me in all the Ford, Ram, GM groups. And I have a passion for telling this story, and I love it. And I've been at UCC, and I'm a big fan of the competitors and the guys that might talk smack about us. I like them. Like, I'm literally fans of their products. Even if they're talking smack maybe about us, I like what they're doing. I don't always like how they test. I don't like the audience that they've built, for like, it's fun to blow up engines. I'm more of a Gale Banks student that you shouldn't blow up the engine. You should try to see how far you can push it without it blowing up. You might, depending on what the test is, you might need to know where the limit is, where the head studs give away and things like that, right? But those are select, right? And few and far between. Yeah, where were we?
Well, that's been a huge evolution for me, because I came into it wanting that power, and I spent, prior to doing this podcast, just chasing that number. But over the years, I have learned that's less. I'm just taking a guess. It's probably less than 1% of all diesel trucks on the road are aiming for 600, 700 plus.
Yeah, but dude,
they're not.
Those guys are loud. They all carry a bullhorn in their back pocket, and man, they're not afraid to use it. These guys who are after big power, they're very, and look, I love them. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, I think what you're doing is rad. Like, I like it. I like the sport. I truly do. I admire the guys that are making monumental power, and I don't care if the engine blows up. I like it too. I love seeing shrapnel, but it's not what we do here. And we're not claiming big power. When we make something that does make 100 horsepower, you can bet it makes 100 horsepower. We encourage you to call us out and put it on your dyno or your buddy's dyno. Please do. We're very confident about our numbers when we post them. But we make a lot of parts that don't necessarily add a ton of power, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a few minutes. But I think you're also maturing, right? When you're younger, you're like, I need big power. I want to go fast. I want these things. But now you have a great, your beard is gray like mine, and you got a family. And do you need to go 140, in a pickup truck? So priorities change, things happen, and so we're not for everyone. The Banks parts aren't for everyone. But believe it or not, we're actually for the larger audience, right? We're for the common guy, again, that's got the dog, the two kids, a wife, and a trailer.
One of the products that I was really excited about when it came out was the 6.7 Cummins intake manifold that fixes the grid heater issue with that nut that can fall into the intake plate. And I actually saw a video. It was Gale Banks and Dave from Dave Auto Center, and they had a 6.7 Cummins engine they pulled out of a truck, and they were both diagnosing what happened, and you could see the carnage that took place. But as someone who would potentially purchase a 6.7 Ram, that scares the heck out of me. And it's existed for such a long time. So for anyone who isn't familiar with that, or what Banks Power does to fix that, tell us a little bit of the background of the problem, and then how you guys address it with a complete solution.
Sure. So with the introduction of the Cummins 6.7 in 2007 and a half, all the way to 2024, those engines all share a common part, and that is the grid heater, the air intake heater. It's called a grid heater because the coil heater looks like a grid when you look at it. And it would remind you of a large heating element from a hairdryer or something. And it is sandwiched between the intake elbow, post-turbo, post-intercooler. It makes a big 180 bend close to it, and it goes down into the intake manifold. The air goes into the intake manifold. The grid heater is sandwiched between the intake elbow and the intake manifold, and its job is to preheat the air on cold winter days so you don't shock the engine and you get an easier cold start. Now, the Ford and GM guys, you don't have to worry about this because you have glow plugs. If you have a 25 or 26 Ram, you also have glow plugs. But if you have a 2007 and a half to 2024 Ram 6.7, you have the dreaded grid heater. And something happened about 2013-ish. There started to be some reports about potential failures, but there's no real, there's internet, but people aren't really sharing how they do now. And then there was a guy named oh boy, shoot, I'm going to forget his name now, but a gentleman that does some Ram content on YouTube in 2019 had reported about it. Says, I think these things are going to start failing over time. And still wasn't many reports of it. Around 2020 or so, after we had launched the Monster Ram Gen 2, which is the 50 state compliant Monster Ram that you're referring to, we got a call from one of our customers up in Canada, and they said, hey, Jay, my truck's up on the lift, the engine is down, I want to get one of your Monster Rams because it replaces the grid heater, and my engine ate the bolt and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, can you send me one? I said, excuse me, what? Stop. What happened? I thought that was a wives' tale. That doesn't actually happen. I just saw someone on YouTube talking about it. He says, no, I think this is like a thing. I said, okay, well, I'm not really familiar with this. Can you put me in touch with the shop that's working on your truck? So I called this guy, Brad, and he owns Protect Diesel in Kamloops, Canada. And I said, how common is this? He goes, oh yeah, we see one every couple of months. I said, wow. What? For this, how? That's not possible. Why are people not talking about it? And he says, we're diesel mechanics. We're not on social media. We're not sharing this stuff. And these trucks are largely out of warranty when it's happened. So it doesn't get reported back to RAM. It's not it's just people, I don't know. It's like a silent killer, right? And people aren't sharing it. I said, well, that's interesting. And I kind of filed it away. But then I heard about another one, and I heard about another one. And so we did a video about like, hey, if you bought our Monster Ram for performance reasons, throttle response, to remove airflow restrictions, slow down your turbo shaft speed, EGT, like all the things that the benefits that it has performance wise, the big side bonus is that you now get rid of your grid heater that could fail. And people started talking about it. Now, why does the grid heater fail? I guess we missed a big important part here. So what happens is that the grid heater assembly is held into this plate with some nuts and bolts. There are insulation washers that hold these nuts and bolts together, these threaded fasteners. And when over many, many heat cycles, with cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, and with a 30 hertz vibration at idle, which is a pretty, you know what a bass note is, like a subwoofer in a hip hop song, a 30 hertz, your truck is idling at 30 hertz at idle. And it's all vibrating and getting hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. Over time, this vertical bolt that holds in the bus bar that's carrying 220 amps of power to the grid heater, the nut on the bottom, which is facing into your intake manifold, it loosens half a thread at first, just barely, but it's enough to create an arc across from the bolt to the plate, which is grounded. So you're now having this small bolt carry 220 amps, and it's jiggling around. And the more it jiggles around, the more it arcs, and the more it arcs, the hotter it gets, and eventually it deforms and it falls off the bottom of the grid heater like a stalactite would fall off the top of a cave. And it falls straight down into the intake manifold, and of course the engine is at a 5-degree rake backwards. So over time, it makes its way down to cylinder 6, and it's just small enough because it's melted into a smaller piece now. It's just small enough to fit under the intake valve and fall into cylinder 6. And in some cases, on Dave's video that you probably saw, it was cylinder 5, which is rare, but it happens. And it gets eaten up between the head of the piston and the head, and it makes a mess, and it destroys. It turns a $30,000 engine into a paperweight. And the Monster Ram eliminates all of it. It can't fail because it's no longer there. We give you a high flow billet intake plate that is just wide open. And so for those people who still need cold start capabilities, we include now up to 4 heating elements. It comes with one, a 750 watt coil heating element that was found in many Duramax trucks. And it's super tried and true, very, very, very reliable. And that coil heater sits vertically in the top of the monster ram for, again, those cold starts. If you're up in Alberta, Canada, you're in Alaska, wherever, and you need more cold start heat, we now offer the dual heat capable monster ram, so you can thread 2 of the 750 watt coil heaters. Or if you need even more heat, we have an inline billet heating device with 2 more, so you can have 3,000 total watts of heating for your extreme cold starts. And that goes onto the inlet side between the boost tube or the throttle body and the inlet of the monster ram. So we've given you the performance. You can feel good, sleep at night that you're not going to eat the bolt, right? And it's not going to have catastrophic engine damage because your grid heater has failed. And it's just a win on all aspects. Now, there are those that say, well, it's only a really small portion. This is all manufactured by Banks, right? I'm sure that's something that you see in the comments. Like, oh, this doesn't really happen. So you got 1.6 million Rams on the road, 1.6 million pickups and chassis cabs with a 6.7. Let's say only 2% fail. Just tiny percent, just 2% will fail and have catastrophic engine damage. That's 32,000 trucks.
Yeah.
I don't want to be one of 32,000.
No, I don't either.
So a lot of guys like, it's a small percentage. You're absolutely right. It is a small percentage, but 32,000 is a lot of trucks. And I've documented, I have a folder in my computer of hundreds that have failed, and I'm just one dude who, collecting. There are over 3,000 diesel shops, diesel mechanics in the US, not including Canada. And these things they're happening a lot. And so, I'm not trying to put the fear of God. Like there are guys, with 200, 300, 400,000 miles on their Ram 6.7s that they look, the grid heaters are beautiful. And they're no issue. Okay. Awesome. Good for you. But you don't know if you're going to lose that lottery, or it's Russian roulette, right? And do you want to play that game? And there are also other people that say, well, there's a cold weather thing. Okay, most of the failures that I've seen are in Southern California, where it rarely gets below 50. And the reason for the failures happening on the Southwest, Texas, Florida, whatever, is because the grid heater is activated at 66 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's turning on in all 50 states. Now, it does turn on more and longer. The colder it gets, for every 10 degrees colder, it stays on 10 seconds longer. But the cycle, the hot, cold cycle is happening in all 50 states. Like I said, 66 degrees. I'm not aware of a state, even Hawaii gets down to 66 degrees occasionally. So the people in warm weather states they're having the issue just as much as, again, Alberta, Canada.
Well, I think a lot of the topic requests or conversations I have are focused around preventative maintenance. And I also talk with engine builders and know what an engine costs. And if I compare the cost and the performance gain of the intake side of an engine, to me it's cheap. Like it's just cheap insurance. It's something to invest in to protect that. But I think the other side of it where I got really excited is you talked about OEM quality. And, we talked about the diesel engines built for the Army and a lot of other things that Banks Power's been involved with. But to have a solution that is of OE quality is also, it's a home run with somebody who's looking for maintenance, preventative maintenance, and doesn't want to spend a ton of money. So I was really excited when I saw that. The same thing goes for like the differential covers and the engine oil pans, and just all those could be entire podcasts by themselves and really get into the engineering details of it. But I think it's such a breath of fresh air, and this has been the whole conversation. It's a lot of times, like diesel performance to me, it was built on somebody having an idea, making it, selling some of them through forums, and they build a website, and it wasn't that high precision manufacturing, accountability, testing. It just wasn't like that. And I always saw the future of the aftermarket. If it could be more like an OEM product, that's where we could really see people modifying their trucks, feeling more comfortable doing it, keeping them on the road longer. And that's what I'm really taking away from this conversation, that we've talked about so much. It's just,
I see, Some of the difference with the diesel performance market is it's brute force. Put a bigger turbo on it, put something bigger, bigger, right? I think where Gale comes from with his endurance racing history is more akin to like F1 racing and trying to shave off 1/100th of a second. And to shave off 1/100th of a second requires absolute precision engineering and maybe a ton of money to do that. But that's where they're living. Those engineers are living 1/100th of a second, right? And it's the difference of winning and losing, or the tolerances. A sloppy tolerance is not, that engine's not going to last that long. It might make really big power for a short amount of time, but it's not going to endure on a battlefield. It's not going to endure on a truck that is like a hotshotter who's pulling 30,000 pounds of cars, of Teslas across the country, and with his Ram or his Duramax or his Ford, and he's got a lot of weight, and he's doing it every single day. He's towing stuff back and forth. He needs something that will last. And yeah, Gale and the team here, they take a lot of pride in making something that is absolutely OE level. And Gale has, we were talking the other day about, we're getting into the Tacoma market. I know it's a diesel podcast, Tacoma is gas, whatever. But he was Volvo hired Gale Banks in the 70s to turbocharge what would become their first turbo sedan. And so he's been doing OE level, and even before that, with marine applications and whatnot. But he taught at General Motors. He's like there, so he's got a very long history of OE level engineering. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. And that would tickle him.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and I think in the future, I mean, there's so many rumors that are going around with what the next engines that are going to come on these trucks might entail. Are they going to bigger displacement? There's things happening on the transmission side that are really cool. These trucks are making more power. They're getting more efficient power. But people are keeping them longer, I think.
And by the way, they are going to get bigger. It's the only way to pass emissions. And once this administration is gone, people are going to try and roll back what Trump is already trying to roll back. So, and I'm not a political insider, but by all accounts, the engines are going to get bigger. It's the only way to produce less emissions and still make the power. You have to go bigger. So we're not going to go smaller. I can't imagine that. And so, yeah. And I'm also working on that. As you can imagine, we're very interested to see what the OEs are going to do next. How big is the next Duramax going to be? And, Ram is going to stick with the 6.7 for a little while longer because they've got the new block and the side draft intake manifold and whatnot. Ford has also said that they're going to stick for a little while in this platform, and they're making big power, and they've probably got some room to go too.
I was just going to ask you kind of a fun question as we're kind of wrapping it up here. Do you ever walk into the office and think, I have one of the coolest jobs ever? Like, I can walk over and talk to Gale Banks. I can stop by the engine dyno room and check it out. I could jump on the phone and talk with a shop somewhere, and they could tell me how we help solve the problem. I can interact with truck owners, other people in the industry, and just have it all right there. That's got to be really cool.
So yes, it is. Sometimes it's tough smelling the roses. I'm not going to lie, because you're in the middle of it, and we're doing the best we can to produce content, educational content. We're trying to at the end of the day, we make parts and we sell parts, and we have to do that. But yes, absolutely. I told you why I ended up here. I fell in love with what Gale had built here, and it was here before me, and it will be here after me. I'm just a member. I'm just a passenger on this train. And I'm trying to look out the windows, quite literally look out the windows and go, this is awesome. There's a supercharged Duramax pickup truck outside. There's no turbos. It's a freaking Whipple 3-liter supercharger on the truck. It's amazing. And it's ungodly loud. It's incredible. And the stuff we make, and to stand next to Gale when he's got the hood of a truck open and there's sensors everywhere. There's 30 plus sensors that we installed, and they're all snaked across going into modules, and we're data logging the whole thing. And just just to stand there and take it in and go, this is really cool. If you're a geek and you like this stuff, you like engineering, and I'm not an engineer. Obviously, you've listened to this podcast, you can tell I'm not an engineer, but I have so much respect for it, and I get to be surrounded. So yeah, like I said before, I'm a pig in slop here. I love it, and I can't get enough. It's just sometimes we're so busy. We're with engineers out my window trying to innovate, and us in here trying to bring content. You watch our videos, hopefully, and we're trying to bring those. We enjoy making them, and it is an awesome spot. Like I said, if you guys are in the LA area, greater LA area, you might be familiar with the Rose Parade that happens in Pasadena. We're like 15 minutes from where that happens in a city called Azusa. And like I said, I give tours, once or twice a week. And I think people, they leave the building with a kind of an appreciation of like, oh, wow, I didn't expect this.
Yeah, I've got, I spent about 10 years in San Diego, loved it there, and I've been looking to take a trip back, and I was kind of planning out, when I do it. And one of the stops that I had was going to be at Banks, because I wanted it to come full circle from being that, guy straight out of college that would watch Stacey David on Saturday mornings, do cool stuff with trucks, and that Banks Sidewinder, all-terrain lineup that I saw, to being able to, walk through the halls and see it and see those products. So I've really appreciated your time today, Jay.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you've done in the industry with content creation, the podcast work that you did, the videos, the education, all that sort of stuff. I'm a big fan of the education, the data, validating that data, and then providing products for us to keep our trucks on the road longer and at that OE quality level that we talked about. That's huge for me. It's huge for a lot of people who listen. That's what they
Thank
want.
you.
So
Thank
it's been
you.
fantastic to chat with you.
Yeah. I will say this to put a button on the conversation. We have a couple video series coming out. One in particular that everyone's going to love. Like it is, we did a series called Killing a Duramax.
Ooh.
And it's in that vein. I don't want to say what it is yet, but it's going to be awesome. And I just bought the engine, and it's going to be really, really fun. And I think it's not just, Gale is so entertaining to watch when he's analyzing a situation. He can bring it to life in ways that I can't, or would never be able to. He can articulate engineering concepts in ways that I could only dream of. And in this new series will be entertaining for anyone, whether they own this vehicle or not, or this engine. And that'll launch in about a month's time or so.
Okay.
So big. So we're all the socials are just at Banks Power.
I definitely subscribe, and I appreciate all the content and your time today. After I'm sure a busy day chatting with me, it was really cool. I appreciate the insight, into Banks Power, and hopefully we can chat again in the future. There's so many products we could go through and talk about, but it was great to have you on today.
We didn't even talk about electronics and data, like the iDash, Pedal Monster, Derringer, and all the new tuners we're working on. So yeah, anytime you want to chat, I'm up for it. Thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Patrick.